right, so the title of my speech is Limiting Screen Time for Children and Nurturing Healthy Development in the Digital Age. More and more we see these kids nowadays glued to their screens, not outdoors, not doing things that they need to be to grow socially, emotionally, mentally, all of these things, and that's what I'm going to be going into today. Excessive use of screen time for children is a problem caused by pervasive use of digital devices that can be solved by implementing strategies for limiting screen time and building healthy screen time habits. There are many negative impacts on physical health of screen time. Obesity and a sedentary lifestyle is one of those. Obesity, you sit in front of your computer, your TV, your video games, and what you do. What's the first thing you do? You grab a bag of chips, you grab dinner, you go sit and you just snack, because that's what people do. And it's important for us to move away from that and move away from technology somewhat while we're eating food, and just limit the food we're doing. A sedentary lifestyle as well. You start to live in solitude somewhat more. You're down in your room, you're down on the couch instead of being out and about, enjoying life, interacting with your family and the people even in your home. Impaired emotional intelligence is another large thing in this. Kind of what happens is people have less emotional interactions, instead of maybe talking to someone about their issues, maybe they decide to go down and watch their show, or maybe instead of, venting to a friend, a coworker, a peer, they just decide to kind of go into their own little room and hide away and, go on their computer. And that's so detrimental to people's emotional health, and that can definitely stunt it. Increased anxiety and depression rates kind of stems from what I just said. People decide not to interact with their peers, build these friendships where they feel like they can vent to people, feel like they can, reach out, and technology hinders them from doing that, which makes people, depressed, anxious to go out in public, things like that. And it's so tough for these people. Impaired attention span and focus is another thing that I definitely noticed when I was researching this. Even I noticed this in my own life. I catch myself scrolling through TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, things like that, and what happens is you watch a video for 15 seconds, you're on to the next video, and you're on to the next, and you just keep getting that dopamine rush in your head, and that is not great, because once you go to experience something in your life, something that maybe would have been interesting to you previously, and you no longer find it interesting, where do you look? I look to these things that really shorten your attention span, and they can be so harmful. Altered brain structure and neurological implications are also huge. These are both backed up by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the National Institute of Health, as were the previous facts that I mentioned here. Face-to-face interactions are large and important in children's lives, especially young children. The first thing a child sees when they come into the world is their mother's face, and they really interact with that. And people need face-to-face interactions to grow emotionally and mentally in their lives. Impaired emotional intelligence is just such a huge thing, and it kind of stems into academic performance and cognitive development is also impaired. People in school, whether they're staying up late playing video games, or they decide to watch TV instead of working on an assignment that they should be working on. These things all negatively affect your academic performance, and they can be so tough. Impact on attention and memory is another large one. This is supported by the Science Journal of Development of Behavioral Patterns. And impact on attention and memory, they did all these tests, all these lab tests, and these kids who were so engulfed in screen time rather than being out in a sport, being out in the yard, doing any of these things except for a screen, really had impaired memory compared to these other kids, because they're not experiencing life like these other kids are experiencing it. Delayed language development is another one. These kids don't get exposed to people who have more sophisticated speech than them. They're adults, peers, teachers. They don't interact with them as much, and what happens is their speech gets less developed. They lag behind their peers. This is also backed up by the Science Journal on Development and Behavioral Patterns. A lot of people think that education has a large portion of screen time that can be used, of technology that can be used in education, And I think that's great. I think the internet is a wonderful tool for education, and kind of what it does is, we have all this information at our fingertips, and I think that's great in moderation. I think we all saw during COVID how much of a negative impact too much technology can have on education. And at least me in my school, our school made it so the whole first semester didn't even count of COVID because people were getting such bad grades and not attending class. So I think that's where the balance comes in. I definitely think that there are some benefits to screen time. Like I mentioned, so much information. It's great for a teacher to be able to present on a screen and present some of these equations to the class. Provides so much benefit to be able to see that up there, ask questions, interact, and find all these answers that you can. There are definitely strategies for limiting screen time as well, setting realistic age-appropriate limitations for them. These little kids should not be able to be on the screen all the time, and older kids should be able to make a little bit of their own decision. Outdoor activities and hobbies is a large thing. Go out, play sports, play with your dog, do anything, go shoot hoops. Anything to get you off those screens so much and get out there. You might meet someone, you might just have a lot of fun, and I think that that's so important. Promoting family interaction is huge as well. A lot of Americans now eat dinner in front of the TV, and I think that's such a loss because throughout the day you experience these things, and then you come home and the people that are most important in your life, they're all on their own screens and you don't get to interact with each other. I know that's a huge thing that my family loves to do, is eat dinner together, and I found so many benefits from that. Implementing technology-free zones. I always love to put my phone on focus, and what that does is, it keeps notifications away, and it really helps me stay away from that screen time. In conclusion, my call to action to everybody is to encourage parents, caregivers, educators to prioritize the well-being of children by putting a limit on screen time and embracing these healthier alternatives.